Hello, humans. I'm Johannes from Dong Kong, and our new single Stay just came out on OH2 Records. And in this video today, I will break down the whole song, I will show you the project, and I hope you can learn something from this. At first glance, don't cry, this is a pretty unknown DAW. This is Bitwig, as you can see here. So if you don't own Bitwig, if you don't know it, it's a bit like Ableton, like a mix between Ableton and, I don't know, FL Studio. Not really, hard to say. But in general, I think most of these sounds we made here you can recreate with every DAW because there's nothing that fancy in here. We start out with the vocals, and if you heard the song, you probably know that the vocals are like computer vocals, like this.
Don't shut me down. Real life can wait.
The whole idea for the song was because our music is mostly around like cyberpunkish themes and around AI and human-machine interaction, and I thought maybe I can just make a simple song about a machine who doesn't want to be turned off because she feels lonely. So the computer begs us to just stay and don't leave him or her alone. And I can't tell you too much about the computer vocal sound.
Don't shut me down. Please join me now.
Because this is kind of one of our trademark sounds. I can show you the little effects chain down here. It's a lot of stuff. I think most important are probably the frequency shifter and little alter boy, of course. But I can't go into detail here. One thing I also did is because it sounded a bit too cold in the end, I just added some vocals of myself singing to the computer vocals. So that sounds like this.
Don't shut me down. Real life can wait.
And as you can hear, this is also highly processed. I can show you the settings here. Lots of autotune because I'm not like the best singer. Some compression, which is probably doing a lot.
Don't shut me down.
Yeah. Also some little alter boy, just formatting down. Then Sooth, if you don't know Sooth, really, really cool plugin to get rid of harsh frequencies. No EQing here, just an empty EQ, de-essing. Then the CQ, which I really like for getting high frequencies. Just pushing the highs here and a bit of drive. Frequency shifter is turned off. Then a room. And a micro shift to get this a bit more stereo in the end. So I just used these as an add-on to my main vocals, and together they sound like this.
Don't shut me down. Real life can wait. Please join me now.
And as you can hear, there is something going on in the background.
Don't shut me down.
Oh, this one also? This is like a
Real life can wait.
is like a harmony, which I think I just pitched it up.
Don't shut me down. Don't shut me. Real life can wait.
Yeah, I just used, if you know Isotope Nectar, that's a pretty cool plugin if you want to play around with vocal harmonies, and if you are like a shitty singer or you can't imagine the harmonies in your head, you can just use the harmony function here, use the right scale, and then you can just try out some intervals here. And I just took like a triad. Is it like a no? That's not the right word. A third, small third. Put it like left and right for a little bit of stereo, and then you just press solo voices, so you only hear your harmony. And like this, you can build kind of cheap harmonies. They also sound pretty artificial if you listen to them on solo. As you can hear, they don't sound that real, but for this song, this was really cool because they're in the background anyway. And we also have our computer vocal, which is the most important part here anyway. So it doesn't really like it's no problem that it sounds so artificial. We also have a vocoder sitting here. I just copied my computer vocal down here on a different track, and then I used the Bitwig vocoder, which is pretty simple actually. And if I now, these are the MIDIs over there that I just put in, and these are also just the MIDIs from my main synths there. It's nothing fancy. I just took my synths here and pulled the MIDI onto my vocoder chain just to get a bit of, I don't know, harmony, just to make it more musical and nice sounding, and also to get like some nice depth with the reverby vocoder. And if I turn it off, I think it just makes a big difference.
Just stay.
Oh, it's automated. Wait a minute, like this maybe.
Just stay. Don't shut me down.
I think it's a big, big difference. And then we also have, these are just Splice samples, walkie-talkie samples from Splice. I think at that day when I made that track, I downloaded these and I kind of liked them, and I just added them to bring in some kind of glitchy thing, because we also like to use little glitchy and computer sounds, and I kind of like these sounds, so I just threw them in randomly before or in between the vocal chops here, and it's just random. That's almost everything to the vocals here. Then in the build-up, I loop the stay here.
Just stay.
Just basic build-up stuff, and then I pitch it up. And it gets sidechained like you can hear. And then there comes the main drop vocal, which is saying...
Just stay.
Nothing new, right? And this is also the same computer vocal from the intro, but really dry. And I think I also, I made like a layer in the manipulator here with -12 to make it a bit more aggressive, maybe a bit more heavy.
Just stay.
In the second breakdown, we have some more stuff going on here. Yeah, I kind of just had this melody in my head for an additional part here, and I just sung it in. Or let's listen to this. Stay, 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 down, 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 down. Amazing. Yeah, and I think I just used the same processing as on these other vocals there. And then also to fill a lot of the space there in the breakdown, I just used Portal here with a weird glitchy grainy delay. I think this is actually a preset, yeah. I just used this one here. Yeah, just to make stuff happening in the breakdown so it doesn't get boring in here. Let's look into the drums. Now, we have a kick.
Hey.
Which is basically a sample, and it's I think it's a Splice sample. I'm not sure where this is from. BH kick. And as you can see, this is a drum machine here in Bitwig, and I use 2 slots here. Why is that? Because the second slot has a little envelope here. Every time the clap, or the snare in this case, hits, the kick has a bit less of a transient. So you can mix them better together, and the snare has more room. So this is why, like you can see here in the MIDI, if I find them here, yeah, it's just first kick, second kick, first kick, second kick, like the strongest kick and then the less stronger kick. And then we got texture, which is a cool tool for layering, especially drums, with really interesting little Foley samples or different kinds of sounds. And in this case, I don't think it does a lot. If I turn the mix up here, you can hear like every second kick triggers this little bubble sound, which I'm not really sure if you can actually hear it in the final mix. But yeah, I think texture is a cool way to get some texture on your drums, and I use it here. Next up, I just made a big EQ because I think the kick felt too powerless, and I just used a Pro L. Yeah, just to control the whole volume there a bit. And I really like to use that function. If you don't know it, if you press Alt in the Pro L, the output follows your gain. That's really cool if you don't want to just increase your gain, but you just want to cut off your peaks. Use this. This is really cool. Now let's check out the full drums here in the drop. Super simple stuff. This is a splice sample actually, and this isn't doing anything. There's just a little bit of room on there that gets automated, I would guess. Yeah, just on these little spots here. Let's listen to this. I kind of simulated a really reverby clap there. Yeah, I really like to do that kind of reverb automation stuff. So that's our snare. Then in the second build-up, one more snare, which I actually just made with the Bitwig snare module, which is like a pretty simple way to synthesize snares. We also have another drum roll snare here. Which is also just an old sample from Cursa, if you don't know the guy, and some transient shaping on it, just a simple drum roll. And to make the whole first build-up a bit bigger or stronger, kind of, the transient from the snare, I also added a hi-hat here. Which also comes in the second half of the drop. And that brings me to the main hi-hat here, which is this one, which is just a chop from a China. So I just took a sample from a China cymbal, and I didn't even use the transient there, just like one little small part in the middle. Yeah, and just chopped it out. I used one of these really, really old electro loops from Vengeance just to get some 16th stuff going on. And I saturated it really hard to make it a bit more modern and just more aggressive. And on the drum group, there is a wave shaper, which just does clipping. I just clip the whole drum group, and it makes it different. If I turn this off, just more sauce. Now let's go to the nerdy part in here, and we start out with the bass group, which starts with something which doesn't really sound like a bass. This is like a weird thing. Yeah, I kind of built this. I took a vocal sample, put on this texture mode from the Bitwig sampler, which is kind of like a grain sampler, a grain mode. So this part just gets looped, but the starting point from the loop changes. And then I just processed the hell out of it. I put on a frequency shifter, which gets LFO'd, as you can see here. And I put on the ring mod from kilohertz. Some OTTing, lots of OTTing. And just a small room from Valhalla. And like that, I also got these little glitchy sounds, which I also added to the intro to make it a bit more glitchy. And I even added more glitchy sounds. I don't know, I was in a glitchy mood. And this is... Yeah, this sound, I think it's something I resampled. It's something I just built in Serum, then just resampled it, and yeah, just played around with it until I had these weird sounds. The main synth in the intro, which sounds like this, is probably kind of my favorite sound in the whole song. And you can hear that sound really good in the second breakdown, where it gets bigger. I really love that chord progression. I think it's kind of like the chord progression from Daft Punk, Get Lucky. The first half for me. We've come too far to give up. This chord is a bit different because it has these little dissonances in here. And then the last one is different. But I really like that chord progression. And the sound is a bit weird. It's this N64 wavetable, 2 octaves up. Wavetable position is like on 180, and it has lots of processing in here. The most important part of this processing is the flanger filter. Listen to this if I turn it off. This is just a normal, I don't know, it almost sounds like a saw wave, right? And the flanger filter brings this weird loopy feeling in there. I like to play around with these flanger filters here. And especially if you have a really simple sound like these, like simple chord sounds, just take these patches and put on the weirdest filters you can find. And sometimes cool stuff like this happens. And then you have this kind of interesting sound. And that's kind of cool because most of our sounds are so heavily processed in the end, and I didn't even add external processing here, just Serum stuff going on. The perk arp here, as you can see, I just used the MIDI from my other chords. Just used this noise here, which is from Virtual Riot, but I think you can use any noise kind of. And made this weird layer. The processing is even the same as in my main chords, so I built this patch from the main chords, just turned on the noise oscillator and that's it. And added this over my chords, and it just gets louder in the build-up. And I think it's really cool because it sounds so plucky and so percussion-like and kind of organic. I mean, the whole song is so digital in its aesthetic that it's always cool to introduce some little elements that sound warmer and more organic in the end. Now, in our drop, there are 2 main sounds, and I will show you the filler sound first, which is this one. And I think this sound is pretty cool because it sounds so real, kind of. It sounds like a string, right? But if I turn off the room on it, you will hear that it's a synth sound. And I built that in Serum. I built it from a preset, actually. But I think, this is like a normal Serum preset, but it sounds so different, I think, if you compare it to the original. I hope I'm right about this. If I'm wrong, maybe I just used the preset, but I know myself and I often just tweak these presets for ages. So, as we can see, and this is how I know that I tweaked this, because that just looks like me. There's this one envelope here, which is doing all the work in the patch. And you can copy all those settings if you want to rebuild that sound. And I think the distortion comp filter it's my thing. I like these filters and I use them a lot. And then I put this reverb on it, this Valhalla room, which is a really small room, like 0.63 seconds, but lots of reverb. And somehow it had this string feeling to it. We come to our main sound here, the main chords. We have a Serum with just pretty basic shapes here, right? This is our LFO curve, which does the movement in fourths. Future brass sound noise from the Chainsmokers noise pack, which isn't even doing that much. And then I used one of these multi filters, and I think this does lots of the filtering movement sound there. Yeah. And if we look in the effects section, there's lots of stuff going on. I think pretty important is this EQ here, because it has this really hard peak, which is really characteristic about this sound. If I turn it off, it also sounds cool, but it sounds more like a bit crushed, like a normal bit crushy sound, and I kind of want it to sound more like vocally, so I don't know, I just put in this really hard peak, and I moved it also with the LFO. And then comes the downsampling, of course, which is really important here. A little bit of flanger. And then, as before in the other sound, also I used the distortion comp filter here, which then makes this sound a bit more interesting, in my opinion. If I turn it off. Okay, I don't know, it's pretty subtle maybe, but I used it on this sound also. And OTTing, a chorus, a reverb, just a little bit of stuff to make this, like to glue this into the whole mix. The chord progression this sound does, it's slightly different from the intro. I think the two first chords are kind of similar, and then I do something that I like to do on lots of Donkey Kong songs in the past. For example, like you say, if you remember that song from ours, is use these major chords in the end. So I just stay on the same chord as I was before and just switch to major. And this kind of has this really, really dramatic feeling to it. I think Flume also uses this a lot. And I like this in our songs to make them less cheesy. Because when you're doing EDM like this, like with these really, really bright sounds, you always run into these traps that you kind of sound like all these EDM guys. And I think our goal is to make a bit more cool EDM, a bit more stylish. And that's one way for me to achieve that, to kind of be different from others. With a bit more dramatic, a bit more weird chords like these. And as you can see, really important, the notes are spread really, really wide, the chords. And this is so important because the whole sound is getting processed so hard that if you would stack them really close to each other, it would just sound horrible because because of all the OTTing and distortion. It's just too much sound going on. And if you stretch them out, all the notes can kind of breathe, and you don't even need that many notes, right? And then there's also this noise layer down here, which is more like a hi-hat thingy, but it's also playing with the synth just to make it a bit more rushy, a bit more groovy, the whole thing. And last thing is the sub, which is pretty simple. So many people ask, like, how do you do your low frequencies, your subs. And to be honest, the sub itself is so simple. It's just two sines. One sine is 1 octave up, and I made a little LFO. I even do some FMing, probably to get a bit more overtones there. And then I just low passed this with the low pass 12. No processing on this. And also pretty important is the noise here, which just makes it a bit more raw. But then there comes the B drop, and in the B drop there's this tickling synth that comes in. Which is also Serum, and you may recognize this patch. I think I built this from the Chord patch. I made it the rate a bit faster to get a really fast attack there, like a plucky sound. You can kind of just build this from the main chord sound. And then I added this with these chopped up chords there. I don't have the Serum project for this, the patch. But I think this is also built from our main chord sound here. Yeah. Then we have a Reese here. This is the breakdown after our drop. And this isn't even like a real Reese. This is so simple. Just like 11 voices, some detuning, and then some filtering. The detuning is getting LFO'd. Just a little bit of tube. This was like a really fast Reese. I just wanted to have that Reese and not work on it for too long. And it's kind of introducing the chords before they come in. Then in the drop we also have this sound. This plucky arp. This also built from the chord sound probably. As you can see, the processing looks the same. I turned down the LFO so much so it's not sounding that aggressive and crazy. And then I just used an arp here, and I would guess it's just jumping between two notes. And I kind of made this so I don't have to use the typical 16th hi-hat that people always tend to use in these B drops. Then there's also this pad. Which is coming in at the end of the drop to get into our breakdown. And I think this is just a preset from the Contact library, analog, brass and synths. Yes. Then in the breakdown we have this little retro pad. Which is made in the Polysynth, which is a device from Bitwig. But I think the sound is kind of simple. It's just saws filtered down with lots of voices and detuning. If I turn it down, you can hear it. And yeah, it's just there to fill it up and to make this part a bit more emotional. Then there's this little build up arp that's coming in. In the build up, in the second build up, which is also just there to make it a bit more, a bit bigger, a bit more drama before the second drop. Something new comes in, and I think this is the only time this arp happens. So effects wise, there's not much happening here. I think what's pretty interesting is how we used the reverse effects here.
Just stay.
There's this one part before our build-up where we kind of suck into silence. We like this technique to create some kind of tension and also a big contrast to the rest of the song, which is so loud and crazy and stuff going on. And then we really like to make that one little moment of silence for the listener to just calm down for a second before the whole armada of sounds drops on his head. So,
Just stay.
and then we have a sub drop here, which is just a preset I built in Serum, which is just a sine pitching down. I don't have to show you this. So this is the full track. There's not much else happening there. I hope I didn't forget anything from the track because the project is kind of messy. But in the end, I think I showed you the main sounds, how we made them, and how we processed most of them. So we hope you guys enjoy our track. Listen to it on Spotify, follow us on Instagram. And if you like tutorials in general, you can also check out our YouTube channel, where we upload tutorials on all kinds of topics, but lots of sound design stuff. So check that out, or join our Twitch every Wednesday, 8 p.m., where you can send us demos and we will give you feedback on them. So thanks for watching. Shout out to OH2 Records and see you next time.